Well, joining us now, the latest on the US presidential race and broader issues facing the global economy is Paul Sheard, the author of the Wall Street Journal bestseller, The Power of Money. Paul, great to see you back in Australia. I hope you're not flying over Papua New Guinea. Be careful if you are. Just joking. Obviously, Karine Jean-Pierre. Paul, last time we had you on, we argued a bit about digital currencies and central banks. So let's argue some more about digital currencies and central banks. Before we get into what's happening on the American election, I've been increasingly talking about the dangers of cash disappearing. We had that discussion. Tell us your thoughts. Are we heading towards CBDCs? Is this a danger? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing?
Well, I think we are heading towards CBDC, central bank digital currencies, Rowan, and I think that the technology is obviously unfolding in that direction. But central banks, I think, as we discussed last year, have embraced the idea. So I think we're going to get there. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I think it depends on how it's handled. And I think certainly, as you are suggesting, a lot of guardrails need to be put around this. But in some sense, the idea of central bank digital currency is, general citizenry can hold paper banknotes, claims on the government, claims on the central bank. Banks can hold digital claims on the central bank. Why can't the general public also, in this day and age of technology, do so as well?
So what about the fears regarding, we've seen the authoritarianism during COVID when the Canadian government was quite happy to seize control of people's ability to spend money if they disagreed with them politically. An absolutely disgraceful occurrence, and that happened like that, blink of an eye. You talk about guardrails, but what would those guardrails need to be, Paul?
Well, I think, there are legal issues, there are issues of norms. Weaponizing the monetary system, whether it's at that individual level that you referenced with the Canadian truck drivers, or whether it's at a global level where we see now the whole international monetary system, in some sense, being kind of used as a weapon of geopolitics. As an economist who, thinks that money is a good thing and helps the world go round, that's not a good idea. So part of it is, you can put legal guardrails in place, but I think kind of as a society, we need to express and assert our norms that, monetary affairs should be within the limits of, tax law and other laws, money laundering, etc., are very much a privacy issue.
Absolutely. Rita?
Paul, turning to the US election, do you believe the lawfare we're seeing, the charges against Trump, civil, criminal, and the fact that the New York case is stopping him campaigning? He's required to sit there in court, so he's visiting bodegas in Harlem. He can't be actually where he needs to be in the swing states. Is that going to play a factor? Is that going to get Biden and the Democrats across the line?
I don't think so. And listening to James's lead-in, by the way, that I'm tempted to say that he may have alighted upon a new metaphor for the 2024 presidential election. And I'm not talking about donkey vote, I'm talking about cannibalism. Dog-eat-dog politics is really getting to the extreme. Look, Rita, as somebody who grew up, in the Australian political system, cast my votes here, it's pretty shocking to see the way in which the legal system in the US is being weaponized for political purposes. There are 4 indictments and 88 felony accounts against the president. And let's not forget that, the certain forces at play tried to keep Trump off the ballot by invoking this insurrection clause of the 14th Amendment. Now, the Supreme Court, no less, after the Colorado Supreme Court said, this is, we should knock him off the ballot, the Supreme Court 9-0 said, no, you can't do that sort of thing. So it is a concern that rather than fighting out politics at the ballot box, to an increasing extent, it's being done through the legal system.
James.
Paul, and also the financial system, of course, is also being weaponized potentially here. Inflation is really sticky, and that's going to cause problems with the potential dropping of interest rates, which would ease consumer pressures. in the U.S. What are the chances then that Janet Yellen and Federal Reserve officials then open up the sluices of money in other ways to prime the economy, to get cash in consumers' pockets and make them feel good before the November election?
Well, I think in terms of Janet Yellen, of course, Secretary of the Treasury, the fiscal policy is pretty much baked in the cake. There has been a lot of money printing that's taken place under the Biden administration, a lot of government spending that's in the pipeline is going to keep coming through, James. In terms of the Federal Reserve, that's quite interesting because everybody in the markets and the Federal Reserve itself had expected that the Fed, by the second half of the year, getting close to the election, would be cutting interest rates 1, 2, 3 times. As you mentioned, inflation has come down, but it's proving quite sticky. And the Fed is now changing its tune a little bit and sending out some signals that maybe it won't be able to move as early as people thought to cut interest rates. So interest rates are likely to remain higher than people thought. But let's not forget that also reflects a stronger economy. But they'll need to keep interest rates elevated to bring inflation down because it's not at their target yet.
And just very quickly, Paul, we've only got 20 seconds left, but you've got a tip. You don't think Biden's going to be around for the election. Tell us why.
Rowan, that's more of a tail risk. I've taken the view all along that I didn't think that Biden would be the candidate come November 2024. Now, everything looks like he will. If you remember when he announced in 2016, he said he'd be a transition candidate. And, I think he is a weak candidate in various ways. I would not be totally surprised if he was swapped out before the election. It's not the main case scenario, but it's a tail risk, or maybe something on the radar screen.
Fantastic. Thanks, Paul Sheard. Thanks so much, author of Power of Money. Thanks for coming on Outsiders again.